Mud churned under their boots as Private Harlan Reed and his squad hauled the deflated rubber tank through the fog-shrouded fields of Normandy, the distant rumble of German panzer engines vibrating through the earth like an approaching storm. Reed's olive-drab uniform clung to his sweat-soaked skin, his M1 helmet tilted low over eyes strained from nights without sleep, fingers raw from wrestling the heavy canvas bundles. The air reeked of diesel and wet soil, punctuated by the sharp crack of artillery in the far horizon, each boom a reminder that the real Allied forces were miles away, leaving this phantom division exposed. Sergeant Elias Thorne, his field jacket patched with mud, and a makeshift bandage on his forearm from a barbed wire snag, gestured sharply for silence, his breath coming in controlled puffs that fogged the chill dawn air. They dropped to their knees behind a hedgerow, the inflatable decoy partially unrolled, its rubber skin whispering against the grass as they pumped air into it frantically, the hand-cranked compressor whining softly like a wounded animal. The tank began to swell, its turret taking shape under the dim light of a shrouded lantern, mimicking the silhouette of an M4 Sherman with eerie precision. Reed's hands trembled on the pump handle, his gaze flicking to the sky where reconnaissance planes might circle at any moment, their cameras hungry for signs of troop movements. Thorne scanned the tree line, his Thompson submachine gun slung across his chest, the weight of false comfort against the invisible eyes of the Wehrmacht. Private Jonas Hale, gaunt-cheeked and unshaven, adjusted the sonic equipment strapped to his back. A speaker array designed to broadcast the growl of engines and the clank of treads, his fingers numb from the cold, testing the wires with deliberate care. The squad worked in synchronized silence, each man embodying the Ghost Army's creed: deceive to survive, turn illusion into armor. As the decoy reached full inflation, tethered to stakes driven into the mud, a faint whir of aircraft engines pierced the mist, pulling their breath short, hearts pounding in unison with the compressor's rhythm. They froze, the inflated tank standing sentinel in the field, its rubber hull painted in camouflage that blended with the scarred landscape of bomb craters and shattered fences. Thorne's eyes narrowed, tracking the shadow of a Focke-Wulf reconnaissance plane, slicing through the low clouds, its engines a predatory drone that set the ground trembling. Reed pressed his body flat against the earth, mud seeping into his wool trousers, the cold biting like shrapnel, his rifle gripped tight but useless against the aerial threat. Hale fiddled with the radio set, mimicking chatter of an armored division, crackling voices ordering advances, the scripted deception flowing through the ether to enemy listeners. The plane banked lower, its shadow sweeping over the decoy, and for a heartbeat, the world held still. The only movement, the subtle sway of the inflatable under the wind, a ghost in the machine of war. The aircraft veered away, engines fading into the distance, leaving a brief stillness that washed over the squad like a reprieve from execution. Thorne exhaled slowly, his bandage spotting fresh red from the tension's grip, signaling the men to resume positioning the next decoy, a half-track vehicle, its rubber form unfolding like a resurrection from the grave. Reed wiped mud from his face, his eyes reflecting the fleeting relief. But the calm shattered as Hale's radio hissed with static, the fake transmissions looping erratically. The first twist struck. Enemy jamming waves interfered, the Germans' electronic warfare tech, perhaps from a nearby listening post, scrambling their signals, turning their deception into a beacon. Thorne's posture stiffened, his hand clamping on Hale's shoulder, eyes conveying the unspoken order to adapt, reroute the wires to the sonic trucks hidden in the copse nearby. They moved swiftly, dragging cables through the underbrush, the mud sucking at their boots like the grasp of buried dead. Hale connected the speakers, broadcasting amplified sounds of tank treads grinding over gravel, the illusion of an entire battalion mobilizing. Reed inflated another dummy, his breaths ragged, the compressor handles slick with sweat, while Private Lucas Grant, his uniform torn at the knee from an earlier scramble, set up phony radio antennas to simulate command posts. The jamming persisted, a high-pitched whine piercing their ears, forcing Hale to improvise with manual cues, cranking phonographs to play pre-recorded engine roars. The squad's survival hinged on this pivot, their tactics evolving under pressure, humanity stripped to instinct. Thorne's steady gaze anchoring the men, Reed's trembling hands steadying as he tied down the decoy. As the sonic barrage filled the air, mimicking the advance of armored columns, a new threat emerged from the tree line, shadows of a German patrol, their Mauser rifles glinting in the weak light, drawn by the disrupted signals. The second twist unfolded. Grant, carrying the classified blueprints for the decoy layouts in his satchel, tripped on a root, twisting his ankle with a muffled crack, his face contorting in silent agony. The squad halted, Thorne's eyes flashing decision. Leave the plans or risk exposure to save the man. Reed dropped his tools, slinging Grant's arm over his shoulder, the weight pulling at his own exhausted frame, while Hale cranked the speakers louder, the fabricated chaos intended to drown their retreat. The patrol advanced cautiously, boots crunching leaves, their Feldgrau uniforms blending with the gray dawn, bayonets fixed like accusations. They dragged Grant toward the sonic truck. Hidden behind a bombed-out farmhouse wall, the air thick with the scent of cordite from distant shelling. Thorne covered their rear, Thompson at the ready, his bandage unraveling as he aimed into the mist, finger hovering on the trigger. Reed's muscles burned, Grant's limp form a deadweight, the blueprints bulging in the satchel like a ticking bomb. If captured, the entire deception operation could unravel, exposing real Allied flanks. Hale adjusted dials frantically, the speakers blaring orders in mock American accents, drawing the patrol toward the inflated tanks instead. The Germans hesitated, rifles sweeping the field where the decoys stood like silent sentinels, the rubber hulls quivering slightly in the breeze, fooling the eye from afar. The tension mounted as the patrol neared the first inflatable, one soldier prodding it with his bayonet, the rubber deflating in a slow hiss that echoed like a dying breath. Thorne's breath caught, the squad concealed in the truck's shadow, Grant's face pale with pain, sweat freezing on his brow. Reed clamped a hand over Grant's mouth to stifle a groan, eyes locked on Thorne's, the unspoken bond of brothers under fire. The Germans recoiled, shouting in confusion, their radios crackling with reports of an enemy armor concentration, the deception taking hold despite the puncture. But the jamming intensified, the speakers sputtering, forcing Hale to loop the tracks manually, his hands blistering on the cranks. Higher tension built as more German scouts emerged, drawn by the reports, their MG-42 machine guns setting up on a rise overlooking the field. Thorne signaled retreat, but Grant's injury slowed them, the satchel strap digging into Reed's shoulder like a noose. Explosions rocked the horizon, real artillery from Allied lines masking their movements. But the patrol fired probing shots, bullets whining past the decoys, one ricocheting off a speaker horn with a metallic ping. Hale's equipment sparked, the sonic illusion fracturing, voices warping into grotesque echoes that mirrored the men's inner turmoil. Reed's grip tightened on his rifle, ready to fire if discovered, his eyes reflecting the raw humanity of choice. Protect the mission or the man. The climax erupted in a frenzy of calculated chaos. Thorne, seeing the encirclement closing, ordered the full deployment. Reed and Hale igniting flashpots hidden among the inflatables, bursts of fire-red explosions simulating tank fire, the orange-gold flames piercing the fog like false dawn. Grant, propped against the truck, clutched the blueprints, his trembling hands tearing a strip from his uniform to bind his ankle, pain etching lines on his face deeper than any scar. The Germans advanced, believing the Phantom Division real, their shouts lost in the cacophony as Hale cranked the last speaker to maximum, the ground shaking with amplified rumbles. Reed lobbed a smoke grenade, the gray cloud billowing to obscure their position, the life-or-death gamble peaking as bullets tore through the decoys, rubber shredding like flesh, the illusion holding just long enough to divert the patrol toward the advancing armor. Emotional explosion crested as a stray round clipped the truck, shrapnel grazing Reed's cheek, blood warm against the cold, his eyes meeting Grant's in a silent vow of endurance. Thorne fired suppressing bursts, the Thompson's recoil jarring his wounded arm, blood soaking the bandage anew, the pain a forge for resolve. The Germans, fooled, redirected their advance, radios buzzing with urgent calls for reinforcements against the ghost threat, allowing the squad to slip into the tree line. Hale disconnected the speakers. The sudden quiet, a vacuum sucking the air from their lungs. The weight of survival crashing down like the artillery that now targeted the empty field. The psychological strain mounted, soldiers whispering of the ghosts they conjured, premonitions of their own erasure in the fog of war. Reed dreamed of rubber tanks deflating around him, sucking him into the void, waking with a start to the real thunder of bombs. Thorne, ever the anchor, rationed their meager supplies, canned rations tasting of tin, cigarettes shared in the brief stillnesses, his eyes scanning maps by lantern light, plotting the next deception. As autumn chilled the air, they deployed near the Rhine, inflating an entire armored brigade in a valley, the decoys standing like silent guardians under starless skies. The Germans bit, diverting panzers to the phantom threat, their scouts probing with flares that lit the night in fire-red bursts. Reed's breath held as a patrol neared, his rifle steady, the turning point echoing the Normandy field. A jammed speaker sparking, forcing manual mimicry, with mouths cupped to imitate engines. Higher tension gripped as enemy artillery zeroed in, shells whistling overhead, exploding amid the inflatables with puffs of air and shredded rubber. Grant, blueprints clutched, crawled through the barrage, his crutch abandoned, pain fueling his crawl. Hale rigged a final sonic burst, the amplified roar drawing fire, while Thorn covered with bursts from his Thompson, brass casings ejecting like spent lives. The climax surged. Reed ignited the pyrotechnics, orange flames erupting to simulate counterfire, the deception peaking as German troops charged the ghosts, only to find emptiness. The squad retreated under cover of smoke, hearts exploding with adrenaline, the emotional forge burning away doubt, leaving only the raw essence of survival. The psychological strain mounted, soldiers whispering of the ghosts they conjured, premonitions of their own erasure in the fog of war. Reed dreamed of rubber tanks deflating around him, sucking him into the void, waking with a start to the real thunder of bombs. Thorn, ever the anchor, rationed their meager supplies, canned rations tasting of tin, cigarettes shared in the brief stillnesses. His eyes scanning maps by lantern light, plotting the next deception. As autumn chilled the air, they deployed near the Rhine, inflating an entire armored brigade in a valley, the decoys standing like silent guardians under starless skies. The Germans bit, diverting panzers to the phantom threat, their scouts probing with flares that lit the night in fire-red bursts. Reed's breath held as a patrol neared, his rifle steady, the turning point echoing the Normandy field, a jammed speaker sparking, forcing manual mimicry with mouths cupped to imitate engines. Higher tension gripped as enemy artillery zeroed in, shells whistling overhead, exploding amid the inflatables with puffs of air and shredded rubber. Grant, blueprints clutched, crawled through the barrage, his crutch abandoned, pain fueling his crawl. Hale rigged a final sonic burst, the amplified roar drawing fire, while Thorn covered with bursts from his Thompson, brass casings ejecting like spent lives. The climax surged. Reed ignited the pyrotechnics, orange flames erupting to simulate counterfire, the deception peaking as German troops charged the ghosts, only to find emptiness. The squad retreated under cover of smoke, hearts exploding with adrenaline, the emotional forge burning away doubt, leaving only the raw essence of survival. In the aftermath, silence enveloped a bombed-out barn, the men collapsing against hay bales, breath sinking in exhaustion. Thorn unwrapped his bandage, the wound a puckered scar, while Reed stared at the letter from Grant's pocket, words of a wife's hope smudged by blood. The war echoed on, the Ghost Army's illusions a fleeting shield, their humanity etched in the quiet spaces between deceptions. Yet the operations pressed forward, each deception a thread in the tapestry of victory. In the Ardennes, amid snowdrifts, they inflated tanks under blizzard cover, the white camouflage blending with the frozen landscape, speakers muffled by wind. Hale's frost-bitten fingers struggled with dials, his breath a plume of resolve. Grant, ankle mended but limping, sketched new decoy positions, his eyes reflecting the weight of secrets. Twists recurred, a compromised radio during a bulge counteroffensive, forcing visual-only deception with painted plywood guns. An injured operator carrying sonic tapes, the squad choosing to drag him through enemy lines, bullets zipping like angry bees. Climax is built, deploying a fake airfield, searchlights piercing night as Stuka's dove on dummies. The explosion of flares, a symphony of misdirection. Reed's hands now steady pumped air into the last balloon, the inflation a metaphor for their inflated existence. The human cost accumulated, Thorn's eyes hollowing from sleepless nights, Reed's scar itching in the cold, Grant's letter reread in stolen moments, a tether to normalcy. The Ghost Army, unsung, saved thousands by being nothing, their tactics a dance with death. As 1945 dawned, crossing the Rhine, they set up the ultimate ruse, a phantom corps drawing Hitler's reserves, inflatables bobbing on pontoons, speakers blaring across the water. The turning points, jammed frequencies from Luftwaffe jammers, a scout patrol spotting a deflating decoy, the choice to sacrifice equipment or lives. The final climax, under barrage, Reed and Hale rigged explosives on the dummies, the blast simulating destruction, diverting panzers as real forces flanked. Emotions peaked in the roar, survival a visceral pulse. Silent aftermath, a riverbank at dawn, the squad staring at the drifting wreckage, a blood-stained insignia washing ashore, the war's echo in the lapping waves, humanity enduring in the quiet.